Hello everyone. Perhaps one of the most abstract things I would talk about in regards to managing human consciousness as its altering state into a different sense of being. And what that means is that you're not changing into another being, but your understanding of your own being is transforming. And as it is transforming, there is a greater view released. You see that sometimes we do not know the value of things, and life gives us those values. In other words, we get hit, we fail, we feel the ends of our end, And as we do this, we do feel chained. We feel as if we are being managed by a greater sense of management than our own. And when this sense comes, it depends on our own experience with how we have been managed to feel how much we can experience those realms. So guys, higher dimensional communication is not for one who's still stuck in the games of the mind. It's actually having a trust outside the mind. When you have a trust outside the mind, then all that is present within your mind is found to be the intent of the higher communication which you have. So it is a matter of great trust, and great trust comes from your own rituals of knowing and many levels of how you are handling different connections and relationships in life. And once you do this, there's the wisdom found within one's being that is of a different light. You can't speak about this light. It's pretty nice. Okay, so now what I mean directly by a sense of other is simply that when we look around, we see life. And we see that when we go to work, we're moving the stapler from the table. And what if the stapler was a person? What would the purpose of a greater being be? Would the purpose of a greater being include the smaller purposes of smaller beings? And so we see what if the nature of our existence is purposeless and the purpose is being given? And so meaning was always less than no meaning, because meaning was always trying to shape that which is too big to shape. So when we look at it this way, the sense of other is a shape. And how comfortable are you with changing shapes? And what that means, changing shapes, guys, people's imagination could go wild when you say this, changing shape. It's not about that. It's the fact that you understand your consciousness is shapeless, so you're comfortable with every shape. That is the more enlightened view. Because it is a knowing. It is a confirmation found once you confirm who you are to yourself. It's a very great remembrance. It's not one that follows stories. And so many people ask me, how can you not have a story and still go through a journey? You can. It's just not going to make any sense. That's it. In other words, we have all gone on a roller coaster ride, and you haven't questioned why the roller coaster was curving this way or that way. You simply went on the roller coaster ride and you came out of it with a sense of experience. And so it's not about how much we're cutting up the journey and what we're really made of. That doesn't matter when with one blink of an eye we could die, we could fade. We need to see that we want to know more than the changes that are temporal. We want to know more eternal changes. And when we think about eternal changes, that concept blows our mind because it shows its nature without ever being constructed. The nature of your being is empty because you cannot translate it. That's it. It's not that there is no meaning. It's not that other beings are not involved. It's not that there is no extraterrestrial consciousness. It's just that you are interpreting everything. And because you're interpreting everything, you confuse. In other words, you think you are consciousness, but you don't know that it's just a shape for you still. You have not had the real experience of it. To have the real experience of consciousness is not something you run around and go to like the Himalayas for, like that, Some people do, but for you, that is why I am speaking now. Because I do not want people to travel to the Himalayas. I want you, in this moment of being, find a route. I'm not even giving you a meditation. I'm just telling you, find the route that leads to a greater understanding of yourself. And that flow is greater than any practice, greater than any promise. We don't want to make temporal promises when we're temporal beings. When we make an eternal promise, the eternity lives through our mind. What that means is that we notice that man's immediate concept of eternity and God is from his mind, right? But some places, not all places. Other places, a story was not enough, so one individual found a method of getting into higher states of consciousness and taught it to everyone else, you know? Because guys, it is the nectar of your existence to be aware of yourself. That's it, you know? You can go to a restaurant and you can have the guy put as much pepper or Parmesan cheese on your food, you know? But nothing is as sweet as being aware of your life process as you're living. To being aware of each step, to being aware of each breath. This is the real nectar of life. This is the real taste of life. Taste is not a comparison. Taste is an utter exploration of your infinite sense of being at every moment. You know, that's good taste. We want good taste in consciousness, and that means you need to be aware of the story you're telling yourself. The first signs of a conscious person is that they stop taking things so seriously. They begin to see existentially that the playful of the child never had to fade. It's just that the child stopped playing. That's it. You just stop playing. So I would tell you guys, there's a lot of ways and there's a lot of self-help books, you know, but I'm just going to tell you this. It has nothing to do with self-help. It's just, in a sense, become very playful with your moment. In other words, if you are in debt, if you are in somewhere, just let go of the expectations of death or any fear, and just laugh. Just once you're able to laugh at your problem or at your condition, you're able to acknowledge it better. So those people who are laughing, comedians, actually have great ability in unlocking insight for themselves. Because they know how to tackle an idea, they know how to change an idea, they know how to improvise. And so improv is a state of being in which man's voice is aligned with man's perception. And so such clarity is brilliant. But I'm not a comedian in that sense, because I don't believe anyone can be a comedian. I believe the more awareness you have, the funnier life becomes. That's it. And when I say funny, no, you've actually, after cultivating self-awareness and knowing yourself, you get extremely comfortable with yourself. You can move. You create new systems of advancing your own mind, because you're the one who knows it well. You're the one who knows the best way you learn. You're the one who knows innately what's the most comfortable position you can sleep on the bed. And it's a one that's natural. So we need to realize, as kids of this generation, as people alive at this time, we want to enhance human beings' ability to confront its consciousness, both in its linear abstracts and its non-linear abstracts. And non-linear means someone controlling you. For a lot of people it means, because if something, you know, it's non-linear, it doesn't make sense, it's chaotic, it's random when nature is hitting us. Do you know what I mean? When nature acts, and when we are engaging with our unknown, and our unknown, in a sense, attacks us because we think it's attacking us, we then begin to see that we think it's non-linear. So our lack of knowing automatically brings us non-linear ways of thinking and looking at things. Now, a sense of control and domination feels non-linear to us because we don't know what happens after death, because we fear certain things, you know? When we see the human being's mind being more excited about a video game than, for example, the rocks at a beach, you know, on the side of a beach, which could hold a ruby, you know, a real ruby, you see that it is simply about the quality of man's attention and how man is paying attention to things. Guys, when you are a biological being that knows yourself best on your memory, you know, what they put in your attention stays the most in your memory, right? So in other words, if you were in a room and I constantly put the same thing there, you would know it after a while. right? So a lot of our knowing comes from repetitive cycles, but there's also elements of our knowing which comes from patterns that do not belong here. I'm pretty sure there are people out there who are seeing patterns of thought in which they see no one else by their side. And guys, let me tell you, we are explorers of consciousness at this point. I want this voice, perhaps my voice will echo into the ears of my greatest grandson, and everyone, to a sense, who can hear me. Because I communicate to a being, I do not communicate to your human idea. And the being I communicate is one of omniscience. I want to show you how omniscience means that there is a natural rhythm to what is going on. And the governance is not immediately by your conscious mind, but it is by your greater mind. The concept that we find really separating humanity from its reflection and its awareness to its reflection is the fact that it is not identifying with all the scenes in the mirror. In other words, once you look at a mirror, you usually separate yourself because you know yourself different from the room. But very few beings can look at the mirror and completely see everything present in the mirror as one thing. And so you see, the human being, you as consciousness, have the ability to focus on different waves and wavelengths of how to be human. And this is important because this beauty reveals how life is getting complex only because it knows how simple it is. We are representing humankind, okay? And we want to do this kindly, and we want to also do this humanely because we want to know what the human is. In other words, I'm not interested here to be another type of thing, to be another story, to be another shape, another image. That's personal to me, who I think I am. But in regards to people, I am here to explore human consciousness. And that means that I am one of the first explorers. Guys, you, in the realms of thought today, stand right beside where I am standing, just as everyone else is standing. We are all present in a reality in which we are allowing the human form as awareness to become more aware of itself, to see of its greater relationships in life. In other words, imagine how cool it would be suddenly you're going by a building and someone says, oh, this is your building actually. And you're like, whoa, that's cool. And imagine someone says, whoa, this is your planet. And you're like, whoa. And no, this is your universe, and you're like, whoa, We want to navigate through more than stories. So guys, for a pilot of consciousness, as I am evidently starting workshops for this, but as a pilot of consciousness, you want to realize that all clouds are thoughts. So you are training your attention not to engage with thoughts in the same way. And the reason it doesn't engage, because it is falling back into its greater knowing, which is unknown. So guys, you know what the unknown never expects of the known? To trust the unknown. Do you understand this? The unknown never expects the known to trust the unknown. But we do not go as the known. That is why human being has the ability to raise even beyond God. Because man can be present through its own presence, through an existential presence, that even the God story must go the same route. You see, you may see someone be a god financially because they have trillions compared to you. But when you look at the grave, they actually have less wealth than you. If you see a rich old guy, it's not that you need to put capitalist images and hatred into it. You're putting your own emotions in whatever image you see, right? But once you see a rich guy, don't feel bad. I mean, feel just like, sometimes I see children, and these children are like dying. And let me tell you what that means. I mean, I've seen old people, and I don't want to judge anyone's life. Who am I to judge someone's life? I'm not going to judge their life, I'm just my own interpretation. But when I'm looking at reality, I see old men forgetting their childhood to try to become children before they have died. Whoever you are, whatever your age you are, you as a being must acknowledge your reality immediately. In other words, don't hide stuff from yourself and don't be dishonest. If there is something wrong, if there is something right, you tell yourself that immediately. Don't hide it from yourself. A pilot is honest completely. And that's why the pilot begins to have the clarity of the sky. Thoughts should not be engaged in the same way as you think. There are different ways we can approach thought, which I am completely talking about. You know? And we see a visionary is not just a person who speaks, is a person who inspires, networking that is constantly inspiring. So we see that an inspiring leader is not enough. You don't need just, Martin Luther King did not want, himself to just be Martin Luther King. Martin Luther King wanted to see and unleash the same amount of passion, drive, and ability in each person he spoke to. So he did not speak to humans. He did not speak to anything else. He spoke to existence in the highest way he could, in the grandest way, in the most brightest truth and honesty. In other words, if I am confronted by an army of arrows that are trying to tear apart my being, my core, my knowing, just like perhaps in the movie Hero, when he turns around and looks at the Emperor after unlocking his mind to greater dimensions of vision, and just simply seeing all these arrows hit, And I am sure that we human beings do not need to worry about that. We just need to know how to close our eyelids gently when the time comes. And so, similar to the movie Hero, the man stood still in his knowing, in his, if you want to call it spirit, you want to call it soul, you want to call it consciousness, whatever name, in his knowing, he stood there. And as he stood there, no arrow touched him. Even though we do see in the movie scenes like, a lot of arrows killing him. But, the shadow-wise, we see a very great movie. But, pretty much the point of that is that you are a hero only when you feel you're a victim. That's the only time you need to have a hero. If you feel you're in a very terrible condition, well, guess what? You don't have to just deal with attracting that condition to yourself. You have to deal with the thought of that as well, constantly, Best hint for people who feel depressed, stressed, or bothered by some social tension or anything emotional or whatever life. Stop talking about it, but don't ignore it. Just stop talking about it. Look at it very deeply and in complete silence. In other words, guys, I have watched ideas die as well. And I have stood in silence, not saying anything, because some ideas are not yours to tell. They are just teachers. What that means is sometimes when you get an experiential opening of every moment, the revelation becomes the flow of your own greater communication constantly occurring within yourself. In other words, your knowing is expansive. And it's expanding because it knows it has already expanded. This is another talk, though. This is totally different. So, in other words, to quickly sum this up, your sense of other then is very important to be able to acknowledge, because sometimes, guys, you can be driven. Your identity can be driven in your mind without your conscious control. What that means is that you suddenly see that the thought you're having in this moment is a bubble of an idea that is not yours. So pretty much, it's like you see a bubble, and once it pops, you realize it's never there. So remember, consciousness is its own greatest teacher. And that means that just your awareness to it is constantly bringing you knowledge and education and whatever inner knowing and harmony you need. So what I am saying here, guys, there are some people who talk about computer technologies. I am talking about a natural technology. a very something that's as common as your breathing. It's a harmonizing factor for the human being, you know? So for those people who are in realities where they feel they're going too fast or they feel they're going too slow, as if there's a river against their purpose, they feel like, okay, I've maintained a good life position here, but still I feel I'm missing something, right? That sense of missing, guys, is your longing. And I'm going to be very creative and poetic in talking about it because you need to allow it, you know? Imagination is just permission for you to perceive greater memories in the same place. Existential allowance must be naturally done with a natural flow of your environment. In other words, for example, I'll tell you this difference. There are days when I would play soccer as a kid, or football, and I would just feel like, damn, nothing's going well, you know, I can't dribble properly, my shoe is not the proper shoe, or whatever idea I would have. But there would be days, for example, especially when the game would begin, where once I got into the flow, it's as if each step knew what it was doing, knew where it was going, you know? And so it becomes that some moments in doing actions in our life, we become so purposeful that it's as if it's no longer us. It's as if our purpose was to just create that moment in which all existence could engage itself, could embed itself into becoming the infinity that it is. To play with infinity means to constantly be aware of all the depth that is present in your imagination. You think your imagination, you guys, you will never have a lack of imagination, and you never have a lack of memory either. It's simply based on how aligned you are to your purpose. So what happens is people who lose their memory, the reason they're doing it is because the being sees how close it is to achieving its life purpose. And so when we acknowledge beings based on their collective presence, we are giving them the permission to be themselves and to also grow into that which they need to. It is an approach in which I am suggesting I have learned this from nature. Because I would probably be that I don't know, who knows, in the future I might be that person who I might have a mechanical engineering degree, but I will not let nature collapse as long as I'm there, do you know? And this is because you need to keep these teachers around. You might not see the value of, for example, trees or animals or insects or just eyes, your vision, and just life. You might not be life sensitive. You might be ego sensitive, in which shapes. And so, to continue on from that interruption, you see, we are more than we think we are. Please know this. You are always more than you think you are, and you know this innately, intuitively. What is your intuition is actually best discovered when you go through it, explore it with an honest self. If you don't go with an honest sense of self into exploring, for example, truth, you'll always think truth is a lie, you know? Guys, the reason you think truth is a lie is because you think some major part of your life is a lie, you know? And so, guys, I'm tired of lies. I never needed to lie. Why do I need to lie? Trust me, it gives you a subtler level of clarity and just peace, you know? Because once you lie to others, trust me, you will lie to yourself. Guys, do not think you can lie to others without lying to yourself. The moment you're lying to others, you are lying to yourself. You are acting, you're calling yourself an actor, and you can't do that. You can't call yourself an actor when you know yourself as consciousness. In other words, how serious are you about this game of life? And how serious you need to be is one of a detached view. And this is very hard to explain because it's as if sometimes even when I speak, to get into these greater states of understanding these concepts, you don't need to even speak. So language is a hindrance here, but at the same time, I'm using it as a catalyst. So remember that at times, what happens when someone has lost all options and they're calling God or their Savior or life or existence or whatever symbol they choose to put at the peak of what they believe like everything is, right? You notice that person is willing to let go. Guys, if you're healthy, if you're successful, you might have in your mind the feeling of staying around. You're like, okay, things are going good for me. You know, I got everything prepared. But if you're perhaps a child in Africa, or some soldier in a country, or some poor person who dreams of another life, you would see that some people, they feel less of an engagement because the system is not supporting them and is supporting others. And why should you be in a system in which you feel there's a lot of weight that doesn't need to be on you, you know, that's on you, you know? So how you approach this is by not putting out, you know, you're making it the responsibility of others to take care of you. You actually make it the responsibility of nothing to take care of you. What that means is that that moment where you've, for example, fallen on the football field, you know, or on the battlefield or anywhere, you know, out of failure or out of slipping, and even when you're that low, even a leaf hits you on the face, you know, and you just feel, wow, there is so much here that's against me. And it's so hard to go through a hard life and not to think of how hard it is. And so this is the suggestion of an enlightened mind, and you may perhaps see it in kids, that kids are comfortable with their environment and with their moment of presence until they're taught that they need to change in ways that are not naturally aligned with how they feel they should change. In other words, a lot of people feel perhaps like seeds thrown here and, you know, growing towards the light of their greater knowing, and suddenly being blocked halfway from sunlight or something because they have to change. So you must have the ability to let go of yourself in conditions where your imagination is creating a hell for you, you know?